Business Academy. So the lovely Vicky Richmond has dug us out the hole again and volunteered to do this amazing presentation, which is all about PR. So I was just actually talking to Vicky, and we nearly ran over and went and started late because of me jabbling on. But I wanted to just mention that I did a lot of PR for my first business, well, not my first business, but one of my businesses that I ran for 19 years. And due to having a small part of PR at the launch of the business, I ended up with several double page spreads in the Kent Messenger. I was in the Daily Mail, and then I got regular calls to go on Kent Life every year. I was in Kent Life magazine every year. I was on Location. We did regular interviews for BBC Radio Kent. We were in Focus magazine every year. I was invited onto Kilroy Silk. I did a TV programme called Baby Boomers, and we were also several times on the Undateables. So loads and loads of stuff, and it was all free. So I know it took time, and time is money, but this presentation today is really going to help you, and Vicky's going to help you, get your business out there. That's what it's all about, Vicky, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Do you want me to jump straight in?
Jump straight in and give us what you got.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Vicky Richmond, the CEO and founder of Red and White Media Limited. We work with small business owners, internal communications managers, marketing teams, entrepreneurs, and marketing agencies to provide copywriting, marketing, and business planning and strategy services. We also assist with internal and external client-facing comms. So basically solving communications problems for clients, whether that's talking to their staff or managing change within their teams, or reaching people's ideal target audiences so they can sell more of their products or services. My background is actually in administration. I worked in that field for most of my career, but I've done all sorts of different jobs. And I realised quite early on in my freelance virtual assistant career, I launched my business in 2020 as a virtual assistant. I realised that there was more leverage in marketing myself as a marketing administration assistant. So I used to write lots of blogs, social media, all that lovely stuff, which I'm still doing now. That's where the idea for Red and White Media was born. But what qualifies me to talk about PR is that I have a slightly unusual background that supports that side of my business. So for 10 years, I was a music reviewer, music journalist, writing live gig and album reviews, both for my own website and other websites as well, and lifestyle and music sites, as well as an internationally syndicated print music magazine. So many of the skills that I learned during that time, such as researching, editing, proofreading, writing concisely for tight word counts, that comes in very handy now when I'm writing for clients. And it's also how I learned about press releases, crisis communications, and building relationships with journalists. So I got sent hundreds of press releases during that time, and probably only about a third of them, maybe slightly less, were coherent and contained the information that we needed to get a review done. So I kind of learned through trial and error what works and what doesn't with press releases and when talking to journalists. But the golden thread that runs through everything that I do is storytelling. And that's true of press releases too. You can still tell a story in a press release, and that's what people want to see. So what we'll cover today are the fundamental basics of getting featured in the press. So we'll talk about how to research contacts, how to write a concise and interesting press release, the basics of sending that release to journalists, and also following up and relationship building. Now, I should actually say that what Linda was talking about there is, a lot of people came to her and she didn't necessarily have to pitch to journalists, but sending a press release and pitching are fundamentally two different things. Now, we're not going to cover pitching today. I will allude briefly to it, but we're not going to talk specifically about that. What we're talking about is actually the science and art of sending out press releases. So anything that you want to talk about, such as good news, like awards news, new hires who are important to the business, anything like that, any expansion plans, that's what we're talking about today, getting stuff out there to press to get you featured so people see your good news, know your business, puts you at the front of their mind, and therefore they trust you and want to do business with you. So let's get stuck in, if I can manage to get my words out properly. The first thing that we're going to talk about is research. So whether you're still using good old Google or whether you are relying on an AI agent, research is key. So self-promotion or business promotion doesn't start with the press release. It starts with you building a database of contacts. So you want to build relationships with journalists. You don't just want to send them news. So it's important to glean everything that you might need from the outset. Please don't be lazy in this. It's always good to note the editor's name and direct email address if you can find one. If it's not online, give the publication a call. Ask who the business editor is, or whichever section you want it to go in. Normally it'd be business. If they have one, or if they don't, who the news editor is. It's not hard to just make that call. So it's wise to think about where you want to be featured and research what's out there. Some people favour a blanket approach and they just go out to everybody. I prefer to pick the outlets and publications where I know there's a good chance I'll get featured. So that's either due to location, subject matter, or because I already have that relationship with a journalist. And you also want to consider who is going to be seeing the resulting article that they're writing about, and whether that's relevant to your ideal audience or however you want to see it. Just to give you a quick example of that, we have a great magazine in Kent called Scene, SCENE. I sent them a few press releases in my previous business, in my VA business. Didn't get any joy with them, but eventually I realised they're just not catering to my target audience. They focus mainly on the local underground music and arts and culture scene, which is not really my ideal client type. So it takes time and effort to create and send out a press release. So try and stick to relevant publications if you can, because otherwise it's just wasted time. It takes a while to do this. So because I network a lot locally, I send to local news sites and trade publications such as South East Business Magazine, Isle of Thanet News. Both of those are receptive to local good news stories, which is a great quick win. They're always up for hearing good stuff about local businesses. They're very supportive. So I also add receptive journalists to my CRM, customer relationship management system, for those of you who don't know. Hopefully you do. I'll tell you why a little bit later on, but also it's a really great idea to create a file where you can keep links or screenshots of anywhere that you've been featured, partly so you can evaluate the success of your press release mechanism over time, but it's also a great thing to do to look back on, to remind yourself of your achievements and how far you've come. So all of us have days in business where we're thinking, what's the point, or nobody's seeing us. So it's really nice just to have that good stuff file to look back on, as well as the evaluation side of things. And you have to evaluate what you're doing, because if you keep doing the same thing and you're not getting results, then you need to tweak what you're doing, because that's just the very definition of madness, to keep doing the same thing over and over and keep getting the same result. So how big is that, Linda? Is that visible on the screen, do you think?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay. If anybody can't read it, just let me know and I'll send you out the full document afterwards. That's fine. So we come on to writing a press release. So editors and journalists receive tens to hundreds of press releases every week. So and I'm going to keep repeating this a lot, but you need to make it as easy as possible for them to make the decision to feature you. So what you need to do is include contact details at the top of your press release. So this is a template, basically. I do it on Word. It's not quite so important to do it because you're sending it out by email, and I will come on to that later, but it's nice to have the template there so you can just do what you need to do, and then you can just copy and paste it into your email later on, but we will come to that. So include your contact details at the top. At the very minimum, you should have your name, the company name, phone number, and email address where people can contact you if they need more information. And the next bit to include is the date of the release. So this is a date that you choose. You can either use the date that you plan to send this out to everyone, or if something has an embargo. For example, if you know you've won an award, but it hasn't been publicly announced and they've asked you to hold off, you can make it clear there. So you would say not for release until whichever date that is. It's very, very important to do that. Obviously, news outlets can get into trouble if they release something ahead of time when they're not supposed to. So it's very important to have that date there. So with your headline, put it in capitals, center it so it stands out. Make it straightforward. Avoid phrases like "we are excited to announce" or "we are delighted to confirm." I say that because, as I said previously, journalists get hundreds of releases, so a lot of them say the same thing. "We are excited to announce" or "we are delighted to confirm." So they see that a lot, and they just don't see it after a while. They're just not interested. So just make it a bit easier for them. Again, I'm going to keep saying that again and again and again. So, I mean, you can see here I've got Kent Communications. This is my press release from my award activity earlier on this year. Kent Communications firm recognised in regional and national awards. It's straight to the point. It tells them exactly what the release is about from the very start. It's simple, it's easy language, and you're just making their job easier. And the line underneath that in italics is more of a teaser, but it still cuts straight to the chase. And immediately those two lines will give an editor an idea of whether this story is something that they want to feature without making them read the whole thing. Because what they don't want to do is have to scan the whole document to find out exactly what you're telling them. So by seeing the first two lines there, they know exactly what I'm telling them about, and then they can decide yes or no, probably straight away without even reading it. Including your town also tells them whether it's relevant to them if the publication is geographical, if it has a strong geographical base. But it doesn't matter so much if you're going national, obviously, or international. Well, I suppose it does matter more really if you're going international, but anyway. So the important bit, assuming that your headline and your subheadline have drawn the editor in or the journalist in, be kind to them. Gonna keep saying it. Pop anything major that you want them to know into the first 3 or 4 paragraphs of your release. Okay, so the news that you're shouting about should go into the first paragraph, followed by a little bit of background, and a quote is always good for the 3rd paragraph. So you can see there, I hope you can read that. I don't know if it might be a bit too small. I'm not going to read it out. But basically, I've repeated the fact that I'm Margate based. I've been recognised twice in 2 months for awards, got my company name again, the award names, the categories, a line about when I was founded and what I do, and then I've got a quote from myself. Now, sometimes those first paragraphs are literally all they will print, and that's it. I say print, obviously I mean it will go into the magazine or it will go onto social media. So when I say print, I mean everything, social media as well. And then I've got a little bit more background there about my company. And then after that, I just went on with a little bit more stuff that they might not need, but is, you know, useful for them to know if they so want to dig a bit deeper. I also referenced in my release something about digital women. This was one of the organisations that I was recognised by. I came as a highly commended runner-up in the Copywriter of the Year category, and it's nice to reference, get my teeth in, relevant professional organisations, because it shows as well, it's got a bit of gravitas behind what you're doing. It shows that you are, you know what you're talking about, and you know you're good at what you do. So that builds up confidence in you and that they want to actually shout about you. Right, so let's move on to the end. It's not the end of my presentation, but this is the end of the press release. Always finish your press release with a way for the journalist or their readers to discover more about you and the company. So for example, website addresses, how they can find out more about you, and if you've mentioned any organisations that you want to promote, e.g. Digital Women, that's what I did there. And then after that, always put the word ends, so they know that anything after that is nice to have, but they don't need it if they're going to write about you. So if they're in a bit of a rush, they know that anything after that they don't have to use. So I've put a little bio blurb, as you can see, after that ends, just for background info. If you had anything that you really wanted the journalist to know, but it wasn't for publication, so for example, I don't know, stats or industry information, you would pop a little paragraph in between the ends and the more about, and you would say notes for editors, and again, put it in capitals, underline it. That may seem a bit pointless, but it just means that everything in the release that's above the ends is meant for public consumption. That's the meat and veg of what you're actually talking about. It makes a journalist's job easier by clearly and concisely laying stuff out for them so they don't have to search for stuff. You're making it easy for them, as easy as possible, to feature you, to decide to feature you. Now, once you've written your beautifully crafted press release, you want to send it out. The one thing that I would advise before you even think about sending this out, please, please, please get someone else to proofread it and sense check it. So I got featured in Kent Life magazine earlier on this year. Fantastic. Love the magazine. Couldn't believe I was in it. Went out and bought 2 copies, one to send to my mum. But I learned my lesson because I was a bit crestfallen when I read the feature. It was only a little thing. It was just a local legends piece. And there were some other Synergy members in there as well. I was crestfallen to see that it said I started my business in 2013. Now, when I look back at the email I sent, I thought, oh my God, they've got that wrong. There was a typo in my email, and I started my company in 2023. So not great. If it was on socials, and I did actually get in contact, if it was on socials, they could just change that. But when it's in print, you can't take it back. It's out there forever. So get someone else to check it for you, just to have an extra pair of eyes. Because when you're working on something, as you probably know, Linda, you get word blind. You just don't see stuff. So it's always a good idea to have that second pair of eyes. And I'm always happy to have a look if anybody wants to run anything past me. So there are some easy ways to maximize your chances of getting your release picked up by a journalist. So as I mentioned earlier, please personalize. Send the email directly to the editor of the publication if you can. Use their name, dear Kathy, dear Vicky, dear Linda, whatever it might be. If you really can't find an editor's name, then in extreme cases, just put dear editor, but we don't like doing that because it's so impersonal. Number 2, try to make your subject line interesting or eye-catching. Personally, for this one, I just said on that particular release that I was referring to, I put news, ! And then I used that headline from the release. Humour works well here, as long as it's appropriate. Again, remember the amount of releases that these people have to wade through. So if your email is going to stand out in their massively overcrowded inbox, brilliant, better, all the better for them to feature you. Don't send your release as an attachment, please. 9 times out of 10, it will go straight into the abyss, never to be seen again. Paste it, and this is what I was saying earlier. So you've got your document there, you've got a nicely formatted Word doc. Literally just copy and paste straight into the email. Keep the formatting. And just literally as it is. So all of the information that they need when they get it is there in the email. Attach any photos to the email. Don't include those in the body because if they're huge, it will affect the sending, obviously. Please make sure that you name your photographs appropriately when you send the attachments so they know what and who people are. So Linda, the one we sent out for you, we very clearly had at the top of the email, photo shows, leadership team of Synergy networking events, left to right, blah, 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 with names. So then they know exactly who it is. They're not going to get it wrong, and just makes it easy. It's all about making it easy for people.
Yeah.
And also, if you've had photographs taken at an event or professionally, please put in the email that they need to credit that person. Give them social handles, give them a name, because, you know, it's always nice to credit photographers. And if you forget and you've been specifically asked, again, that could come back on the publication. They'll get, what am I trying to say? Not flashback. What am I trying to say? They'll get in trouble for that. So just, it's all the little things that you need to remember. So that's one of them.
Hayley Hickmont Morris has just said that's great advice about not sending anything by attachments.
Yes, apart from the photos, obviously, but the actual release itself, paste it straight into the body of the email, because again, it just, they can just scan it and they'll know whether they want to use it or not. Make it clear how they can contact you. So although you've got the contact information in the body of the press release at the very top, when you introduce your release, just say something along the lines of, and again, Linda, this is what we did for you, the contact name, just say so-and-so is available for interviews, or if you would like to clarify any information, something along those lines. So just make it known that you are available for contact if they need to get any more information out of you, because it's just, you know, it's nice to do that, really. And number 6, please say thank you at the end. Don't be afraid to pop in a sentence that says something like, I don't know, please do let me know if you decide to feature us so that we can share and say thank you. So probably 6 or 7 times out of 10, maybe a bit higher, I don't know, nobody ever says thank you. They just literally go, oh, we're in the press, and, you know, they get all excited and they share it, but they don't say thank you. So if you want to build relationships, and we're going to be talking a little bit more about this in a minute, then always say thank you. It's a really nice thing to do, and they will remember you for it, and they will thank you for it because you're grateful. So let's just talk a little bit about this. There are services out there that you can pay to use, as well as obviously a copywriter /com/PR person, to get your press release out far and wide. So whether you want to go regional, countrywide, or even globally, there are organisations, News by Wire, PA Media, Presswire, Pressat. I think there's another one called Editorial, which I haven't put on there, which is a relatively new one. Personally, I haven't used any of these, but they all look pretty much the same. So it basically duplicates the process of what we've gone through today with a press release, but you upload your press release once with your photos, and it sends it to all of the contacts that you want it to go to. So if you wanted to put something out globally, it would send that to all of the contacts in their database that you've selected. So at first glance, brilliant, right? Brilliant. You can pay by press release, or you can pay a set fee. You can pay like a one-off, or you can pay a regular fee to use these sites. However, it very much depends on what outcome you're trying to achieve. For example, myself as a micro business, I probably won't use those sites because I have limited capacity. I don't want to advertise my services abroad. I don't really want to be advertising at this stage to the whole country. I don't really want to go national. I don't want to be featured on TV or any of that stuff, because I'm a small business and I want to stay, at least for now, a small business. Also, I like to keep my relationships with journalists personal, and I'm just not sure that with this type of service I would be able to do that. So it's entirely up to you, really. You know, you can use somebody like me or a PR company, or you can use something like this. But, you know, there's no, either way is fine. Depends on what you want and what you're looking for as your outcome, really. Have we got any questions, Linda, so far before I move on?
No, I just comment from Hayley at the moment.
Okay, cool. So I want to make a note about following up, and this kind of follows on from what I've just said about using a broadcast service. So regardless of whether you've used that service or whether you've sent the release yourself, don't be afraid to follow up if you haven't heard anything after a week or so. Now, when I send out a press release, I'm awful. I literally sit there, or on behalf of the client, I literally sit there Googling for about a week every day. First day it's every 5 minutes. But you don't have to do that. You can set up a Google alert on your business name and your own name as well. I've got alerts on everything of mine, and it's really handy. So it pulls in everything from the internet that has your name or your business name, and it's all there in one place for you to take a look at. So if you do get published, make sure you share the posts if it's social media, tag the publication, tag the journalist, and again the photographers whose pictures were used. That release that I sent out, there was a lady called Emily Dews who runs Emily Dews Photography, and I made sure that I had at the top of my email, if you use this particular picture, please credit Emily Dews Photography. And they, well, most of them did. There was one that didn't, which was a bit annoying, but I did let Emily know that I had, put it out. So and then send a thank you email to the journalist. Remember I said earlier that I add receptive journalists to my CRM. So in my previous VA business, I used to send a Christmas card, and well, actually I used to hand deliver it to local people because I had the time. A Christmas card and a small gift to say thanks to those people who always featured my good news or that of my clients. It doesn't have to be massive. It was always a business related gift, so it would always be something that, was either sort of a calendar or pens and stuff. And I know that sounds a bit cheap, but you know what I mean. It's just usually business related. I had branded wine one year. It doesn't ever have to go above £10 or £20 because then you're getting into bribery territory. Most organisations will not allow people to accept gifts over the amount. I think it's £50. I wouldn't swear to that. But it's good to, what the point I'm making is whatever you give them, even if it's just a card, it's nurturing the relationships with journalists. Often people don't bother to thank them. So you'll stand out in their memory, and the next time you send them a press release, they'll go, oh, I know her, she's really good. We'll put that in because it's interesting and our readers appreciate it and they appreciate it as well. So just a couple of examples. Linda, I hope it's okay. I've got yours in there as well. Both myself and my clients, there's the offending Kent Life article that says 2013. Mortified. So I've been featured, and my clients have been featured in and on the Isle of Thanet News, Academy FM Thanet, Business Bunker Radio Show, Southeast Business Magazine, Kent Life Magazine, and the Kent Business Newsletter. So my awards press release that I showed you there, that when we were building, that generated some local client inquiries, which I'm really pleased with because I've not had that before. So I've actually landed a client out of my Isle of Thanet News story, which was this one here. So yeah, I'm really pleased. So that's pretty much everything I have to say. Before we go to questions, I'd love to connect with people on LinkedIn. Just scan the barcode at the top to go straight to my profile. I also send out a monthly newsletter, so if anybody wants to subscribe to that, please do. There's a separate QR code there. And thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful. And if anyone has any questions, or if Linda, if you want to pick up anything I've said.
Yeah, so Nick McGowan has said, thanks, some great tips here. How do we receive the Google alerts once set up? Is it by email?
So it depends how you set it up. It will either email you, or you can go to Google Alerts and everything is there in a digest for you. I must admit I haven't looked at it for a while. I haven't had any emails for a while either. So best to have a look, set it up and see what the notification settings are. But it's really useful. Even if you can't do that, and you should be able to, but even if you can't, just set a diary note once a week to go to Google Alerts and just scroll through all of the coverage that you've had. Is really useful.
Is there any value in including articles that you have had published? So all of those articles, are they all on your website?
My website is still a work in progress, but I do have a portfolio of articles and press coverage that I've achieved both in this business and my previous business. So if anybody did want to see, then I can provide that for them. It's not publicly available, but yes, I do keep it all. And again, it goes back to that good stuff file as well. So recommendations, if somebody just says thanks on an email, keep all of that stuff because it's all useful social proof as well as feel good feel good for yourself.
So it'd be really good for us to put the Southeast Business Magazine on there, because that raises our credibility as well as theirs, doesn't it?
Definitely, and the Kent Business newsletter. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So you've got a question here from Hayley, which I've put up on, so you should be able to see it as well.
Okay, let me just move my... Okay, what are the first steps to take when you're at the very beginning of building relationships? So I think basically it comes down to communication. So when you, obviously, please try and use that name, as I say, because you want to make it as personal as you can. When you send the release, just give them a call or drop them an email. It's basically about keeping in contact with people. Yes, they're busy, but if you're not pushy, and if you do it in a nice way, as I'm sure Hayley will, because she's lovely, then, you know, that's how you start to build those relationships. And if somebody does feature you and you say thank you and you keep in touch with them, then, you know, you will find that that just naturally comes over time. It's taken me 6 years to build relationships with certain local journalists, and that's purely by doing all of the things I've said today. So, you know, thanking them. Sometimes I will email a particular outlet and ask what's coming up in the magazine. So, you know, you can type, like with you, Linda, I guess if you knew you were going to feature a certain, I don't know, for the sake of an argument, if you knew you were going to feature something like today, and you knew that somebody in Steel Business or Kent Business Newsletter or somebody like that was going to talk about the same thing, you know, you can contact and ask if there's any potential for collaboration or anything like that. Basically, it's just keeping in touch. That's the easiest way I can tell you to start to build those relationships. And always say thank you.
Okay, thank you. So are there sort of still publications that are specific to towns? Because I know back in the day I used to advertise in the Maidstone KM, and there were specific publications that I went into. I can't remember the names of them now, for doing events in Dartford and that. Is that still the case?
There are. Oh, somebody else want to come in there?
No, that was me.
No. Oh, okay. There are, but I know certainly with the local newspapers, they've kind of had a big reshuffle of all that, and they're all kind of the same stuff. So if you look at the Isle of Thanet News and the not the Isle of Thanet News, if you look at the Isle of Thanet Gazette, Thanet News, I think it's called, and there's another one as well, they have all of the same stories in their papers and on their websites. So it's basically the same journalists covering the same outlets. And things like Kent Online, they will have the same journalists writing. They'll just tweak it for the audience. There are things like Community Ad, you know, the little local magazine. I don't know if you get that up where you are. Certainly in Thanet, we get Community Ad come through the door, and I think that might be in other areas as well. So it's worth getting in touch with them. I'm not sure, but there will be like local publications and stuff. But again, when you go right back to the first stage and you start researching, you know, you can either look in Google or you can get something like ChatGPT to give you a list of publications, or, you know, if you want to keep it local, then ask it for local publications. So there are always ways to find out things like that. But also as well, don't forget that local Facebook groups are good on Facebook. Facebook groups, because, you know, you might find journalists posting in there, so you can get details in there, or, you know, you can pick up other stuff in there as well about magazines and things, like little locally produced magazines. So yeah.
Okay, and is that the same as county-wide? So, you know, obviously we're only in Kent at the moment, so I suppose it would make sense for us to be going in county-wide publications.
Yeah.
Is that the same story?
So Kent Life, I believe I'm correct in saying, if anybody wants to correct me, that's fine if I'm wrong, that is kind of a national thing. So we have Kent Life, but down in Dorset, they have Dorset Life. That is county specific. So we get the Kent one, other people get their own. But there will be county specific magazines everywhere. So if you wanted to target businesses in a certain area, then by all means, you know, research that particular area to see what's there and target them as well. The only reason I kind of stick to Kent, as I say, is because I'm a micro business and I don't really want to be beyond capacity very quickly. So that's my personal choice. But again, with those press sites, and I think some of them are quite reasonable, you know, they will have everything on there, everybody who deals with them. So it might be worth exploring for someone who wants to go bigger and get wider reach.
And then my final question is, you know, you've said what you should include in a press release. What have you got a list anywhere that people can download or?
Not really. I mean, I can provide that to people if they want it. But I think basically the main elements, I'll go back to that slide actually, Linda, because I think it might be useful for people to recap. Let's have a look. Okay, so I mean, these are non-negotiables. This is what you should have in any press release. Yeah. So definitely the name and the contact details. You're basically just building it from a template every time. And if you use those online services, it literally, because I have sort of had a look, it walks you through. So it asks you for contact details, it asks you for your headline, it asks you for the body of the text, it asks you for photos. So it kind of walks you through the process anyway. But this, I would say, is, you know, the non-negotiable stuff. So if anybody wants to make a note of that. But again, I'm quite happy to give even the slides out if you want, if anybody wants them, or I could just pop it on the notes in the comments of the post, yeah, that you put out.
So last but not least, I mean, I called it my secret weapon, and there was a massive a dating agency that worked, you know, that they thought that I was in cahoots with the local paper because I was in there so often, and I wasn't. And how important do you think it is for a new business to take advantage of this, what I call secret weapon?
Totally vital, because it's free at the end of the day. You're not paying for it. You know, most of the business publications especially will be receptive to what you have to say. You know, they write about small businesses. I mean, okay, I'm a micro business. I didn't think, for example, Southeast Business would ever feature me, but they featured my old business and they featured this one because they are what it says on the tin. There's a lot of bigger businesses in that magazine, but at the end of the day, they are covering business in the Southeast. So they're really receptive. The editor there, Zoe Friday, she's lovely. And they will always support up and coming businesses, as will most of the business publications. And also, if you go to something like the Kent Business Show, a lot of these people will be there, not necessarily exhibiting, but if you take the time to talk to people, Zoe was there at the Kent Business Show, because I actually said to her, oh, I don't think I've heard anything from you for ages, you know, the last 2 releases, and she was like, I'm really sorry I missed it. And then from then on, everything I've sent, she's been good enough to feature. So it's worth making yourself known to people at events, networking events, trade events, regional events, all that stuff, because it's nice for them to put a face to the email as well. I mean, they see your photo, but it's not the same as actually standing there and having that conversation.
No, yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, it's free. It's free publicity. You know, even if one person sees it and gets in touch with you like they have with me and then becomes a customer, that's a customer you wouldn't have had otherwise. So why wouldn't you? Yeah, why wouldn't you do it?
That's amazing. Sure. Thank you so much, Vicky. So if anyone, you know, wants their PR done, then obviously Vicky's a great one to go to. And, you know, you can, I'm sure that she'll continue to answer any comments or anything you want to put on the LinkedIn. It looks like most people are watching us on Facebook, actually. So that's amazing. Thank you ever so much. And
you're very welcome.
Sure, we'll chat again soon. And did you see everyone offering you lifts to the event last?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely go to the next one. I'll get a lift from somebody, so that'll be good. Thank you.
Yes, fantastic. All right, my lovely. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening.